More good news for the New York Islanders this offseason. The prospect pool is moving on up, and some key players are getting healthy. We'll talk about that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey, and we have got a lot to discuss. The Islanders prospect pool moving on up. We'll talk about the impact of that. Bo Horvat, ready to start training camp. He is healthy again. We'll break that down. And the Islanders TV schedule, national TV schedule for the upcoming season coming out. We'll tell you which games you need to watch elsewhere and which services you need to subscribe to in order to watch them. So make sure you stick around for that. Let's start with the prospect pool because let's face it, the Islanders right now are in a retool. And what we've seen is a vast improvement in the grading of the Islanders prospect pool over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, this team was dead last. Now, a year ago, they moved up from 32nd all the way, mind you, all the way up to 25th. This year, they are in the top 10. The Islanders are 9th. And this pipeline ranking by The Athletic talks about the best prospects and players who are under 23. And they ranked all 32 teams in the league. And yes, the Islanders were 9th. And keep in mind that the Islanders 3rd in the Metro Division on this list. But the Flyers were 7th, the Blue Jackets 8th, and then the Islanders 9th. The other teams in the Metro, the Devils were 12th, the Capitals 15th, the Hurricanes 18, the Penguins 19, the New York Rangers 24th, and they are dead last right now in the Metro Division according to these rankings. And you know, the analysis just went straight down the line ranking the best prospects that the Islanders have. But the fact that the Islanders as an organization have moved up from dead last to 9th in the prospect pipeline really has an impact. And it's a necessary step because the core that Lou Lamoriello had put together basically maxed out after those 2 runs to the conference final in 2020 and 2021. Since then, you had 2 seasons of missing the playoffs altogether and 2 seasons of barely getting into the playoffs, but being easily eliminated in the first round. And the roster was getting older, and too many players had either bad contracts or had no trade clauses or both. And every day, as you know, you've heard me talk about this for more than a year already. And to his credit, Lou Lamoriello did start to dig the Islanders out of this hole. He drafted and did not trade away the Islanders' first-round pick that turned into Cole Yzerman. And then, even though he didn't want to trade Brock Nelson, he was forced to buy Brock Nelson, but he made the trade, got a really good prospect in Cal Ritchie, who was considered the top prospect in the Avalanche organization. And by the way, the Avalanche without Cal Ritchie now ranked dead last in this poll. And added an extra first-round pick in 2026 as part of that Brock Nelson deal. And then Matthew Darche, we win the draft lottery. That was a little bit of luck, but it helps. And then he trades Noah Dobson instead of paying him big bucks for an inconsistent player, and ends up adding 2 first-round picks and get some guys who are ranked higher than their draft spot in round 1. So Matthew Schaefer, obviously top of this list for the Islanders. And the perspective is that he can be an NHL All-Star. That is the tier that they're ranking him in, which is amazing. Number 2 on the list, Victor Eklund, 16th overall pick in this year's draft. Top of the lineup player, according to this ranking. Number 3 on this list, Kashawn Aitchison. Again, all 3 players at the top of this list from this year's draft. 17th overall pick this year. Bubble top and middle of the lineup player. In other words, a second pair defenseman who could maybe squeak in to the top pair. Number 4 on the list for the Islanders, Cal Ritchie. Again, same thing, bubble top or middle of the lineup player. In other words, probably a second line guy ultimately. And then rounding out the top 5 is Danny Nelson, who, a lot of guys forget they have him as a middle of the lineup player. So probably based on his skill set, a third line guy, because his offense is not elite. So probably a third line guy. I could see Danny Nelson, if he continues to develop his game, kind of taking over the JG Pageau kind of role. Coming in at number 6, Daniil Prokhorov, the second-round pick in this year's draft, also considered a middle-of-the-lineup player. Number 7 is Marcus Gidloff, the goalie, also considered middle of the lineup. And then, interestingly enough, Cole Yzerman in this ranking is 8th on the list and is projected to play NHL games, is his tier. And you sort of think, hey, that's a little low, right? The concern by The Athletic is that his shot is elite, but all his other traits, skating, puck skills, hockey sense, compete level, considered average for the National Hockey League, not elite. And again, and I've said it several times, for Cole Yzerman, the shot is impressive. But the key for Cole Yzerman to become a real contributor is what he does when he doesn't have the puck. He cannot be a major defensive liability. He's got to buy into the team concept the same way that Pierre Engvall frustrates Islander fans and his coaches, and probably his teammates, although they're not going to say it publicly. But the same way that, he doesn't do what his coaches want him to do, Yzerman has to do what his coaches want him to do. The skill is there. And if he pans out, he can be a top line player. He will certainly be an elite power play guy if he gets his chance with the Islanders and does the things he needs to do to get to that next level. And, Yzerman to me should have been higher than 8th on this list, probably 4th or 5th. But think about this. If Cole Yzerman, who a year ago was number 1 on this list, is now 8th, that tells you how good an off season. And when I say off season, I guess I'll start at the trade deadline and go forward. But that tells you how good an off season the Islanders had. And keep in mind that as of right now, the New York Islanders have 2 first-round picks in this next year's draft, 2026, which is supposed to be one of the deepest drafts in recent memory. And in theory, again, doesn't happen till it happens, but you've got J.G. Pageau, Anders Lee, guys who are on expiring contracts who the team could trade to possibly add another first-round pick. There are other players who could be on the trade block before the trade deadline this year. Maybe, depending on what happens in camp, we could even see a trade before the season starts. But you've already got 2 first-round picks next year, and you've got the potential to add more. So there is a lot. We are 9th with the arrow pointing up and a bullet right now, as far as the way this team looks in the prospect rankings. And, the Islanders are still probably in the middle or a little below the middle of the league as far as, where they're going to finish this year. The ceiling is probably, again, sneaking into the wild card. If the wrong injuries hit, they'll miss the playoffs and maybe even get a really good lottery pick. But ultimately, this team may still be in the middle, but they're out of the mud. And that is fantastic. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. Bo Horvat talking a little bit to the Islanders website. We'll talk about what he had to say, including some optimism about his health. We'll also talk about the nationally televised schedule for the Islanders this year and a lot more. Coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits. You can do great bets like player props. You could build a same-game parlay, or even you could jump in live as the action unfolds and place bets mid-game. And it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com, check it out today. So, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and to make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and to answer questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in your show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Bo Horvat was interviewed by the Islanders' official website earlier this week. And I got to say, again, encouraging news with regard to that. Because Bo Horvat basically, he suffered an injury at the World Championships. And despite that, the good news is he is going to be ready to go. Now, he has been invited to Canada's Olympic orientation camp, which is, an honor as far as he is concerned. And he basically has spent the off season working on, feeling better. And, he said, I feel great. I feel back to normal and ready to go for the season. I've been skating all summer. Nothing has changed there. And he basically said the whole experience at the World Championships was great. The guys were phenomenal, and we had a really good group of guys and a lot of good hockey players on that team. It was fun to play with a guy like Nathan MacKinnon. It was a great experience. He also, by the way, mentioned how well he knows Jonathan Drouin. He said, we played against each other a lot growing up. To share that World Junior experience with him was pretty cool too. He's a really nice guy, a really talented player, and we're lucky to have him. Now, they were teammates back for Team Canada back in 2014 at the World Juniors. And as we've mentioned, Patrick Waugh, the head coach, anticipates Drouin and Horvat to be line mates to start training camp. Now, again, Patrick Waugh mixes and matches his lines shift by shift within a game, let alone game to game, week to week, month to month. But, he does have sometimes core duos that he likes to keep together. Palmieri and Brock Nelson in the past, Bo and Barzy in the past. So Holmstrom was very often paired with Pajot. So let's see, how this plays out and whether or not Drouin and Horvat become one of those duos. It's very possible that they do, but at the same time, as we know with Patrick Waugh, nothing is etched in stone. And, one last parting thought from Bo Horvat. He's looking forward to training camp. He said it's going to be a tough camp. It's a condensed schedule. We have a lot of games in a short amount of time. I think with the guys we added and our lineup right now, I'm excited for it. Obviously, drafting first overall and getting Matthew Schaefer, it has propelled us to be a really good hockey player in the future as well. I'm excited, and I can't wait for the season to start. And oh, by the way, Horvat and his wife going to welcome their third child any day now. So we'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully everything will go smoothly. But, Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat, both of them skating, ready to take that next step, will be ready for training camp. And, same with Anthony Duclair. Those are the major injured guys that we were concerned about, making sure we get them back. And let's face it, as I mentioned earlier, if everything breaks right for the Islanders, they're that wild card team again, right? They can sneak into the playoffs. But I'll tell you right now, if Bo Horvat isn't healthy for long stretches of time, if Matthew Barzal is not healthy for long stretches of time, if Jonathan Drouin misses significant time, and then let's not even go anywhere near, missing Ilya Sorokin for a long period of time. But, they've got to stay healthy. And Bo Horvat being healthy is critical, because the one thing this team lacks the most is goal scoring. I think almost everybody who's commented on YouTube and via email and who's gotten in touch with me on social media, where are the goals coming from? And they are going to need Bo and Barzy and Drouin and Palmieri and Duclair. The only way the Islanders move up in the goals scored category is for most of these guys to stay healthy, and then you need solid seasons from the guys who are out there staying healthy. You know, if Drouin scores 20, and maybe you get 20 from Duclair, and you get 30 from Bo Horvat, and 20 more from Palmieri, all of a sudden, you know, that maybe Simon Holmstrom goes up to closer to 25 goals. All of a sudden, you're climbing. Maybe Matthew Barzal gets to 20 again. Maybe you can get from, you know, the bottom of the pack, from being 28th in the league in goals scored. Maybe you can get up to 16th, 17th. Get me to the middle and get me solid goaltending and defense. That's the way you get into the playoffs. And obviously, the special teams have to be better, but you need, for the power play to be better, you need your power play guys to be healthy. So let's hope that that is the case. But good news, Bo Horvat ready to start training camp, and training camp is just two and a half weeks away. We have got more to get to on today's show. We're going to talk about the Islanders' national TV schedule. So mark your calendars. We'll tell you what games are not going to be televised on the Islanders' local TV and how you can prepare for that. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a great offensive player who the Islanders acquired in the early 90s from Buffalo, who is just made his mark with a 132-point season in 1992-93. We'll talk about this player and his impact, all that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So the national TV schedule was released earlier this week. And 10 Islander games this year will not be broadcast by Butch and Brandon. And you got to have your national media streaming services or cable services to get them. And, you know, it's always a little frustrating when you don't have access to a game, or when you don't have your own announcers and you think, I'm paying for, you know, this service, I'm paying for MSG Plus, and I still don't get the Islanders. Why? You know, I get it. It can indeed be frustrating, but we're going to prepare you for that. So October 16th, 1 week into the season, the Edmonton Oilers visit the New York Islanders. That is an ESPN Plus and Hulu game, and the start time has been moved to 7:30. 2 weeks later, October 30th, Islanders in Carolina, also moving to 7:30, also ESPN Plus and Hulu. The first TNT game, December 9th, when Vegas, the Golden Knights, visit UBS Arena. Then on January 6th, back to ESPN Plus and Hulu, Islanders Devils, and that game moves from a 7 o'clock Eastern time start to a 7:30 Eastern time start. January 21st, a West Coast game, Seattle, Islanders visiting Seattle. That's on TNT, and they're moving this game from 10 o'clock to 9:30, so we don't have to stay up quite as late. That's a sacrifice I'll take. January 28th, the Islanders host the Rangers. That's a TNT game. February 3rd, Islanders hosting the Penguins. That game gets moved to 7:30, also on TNT. March 1st, the defending Stanley Cup champion Panthers visit the Islanders. That now goes from a 4 o'clock game to a 6:30 p.m. game. March 5th, the Islanders in LA to take on the Kings. That's on ESPN. And then March 10th, as of right now, the final nationally televised game for the Islanders. Islanders in St. Louis to take on the Blues. That's a TNT game. So those are your national games. So 72 games should be available on MSG Plus. And then as of now, you've got the other 10 that I just mentioned. And again, hopefully everybody has access to these games and is able to watch them. And you know what? I'll even say this. I know it can be frustrating. You love Brandon and Butch and you know, the entire crew over at the Islanders broadcast, and when they're not there, you feel like you're missing something. I get it. I feel the same way. But it can be galvanizing. The fans together can unite if the national announcers aren't going to be fair to the Islanders, don't know their stuff, overlook certain things that, Islander fans and Islanders media knows. So, again, yeah, it can be frustrating, but yeah, it could also unite the fan base in the frustration that they share at, Biz and some of the other broadcasters who don't always give the Islanders a fair shake. And the other thing is obviously this. Team does well, they'll get more national televised games, and don't be surprised if some of them end up being flexed. So we'll see how it all plays out. But as of now, those are the 10 games that will be televised nationally. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And Thursday was the 56th birthday of former Islanders center Pierre Turgeon. First overall pick in the entire 1987 draft by the Buffalo Sabres. Started right away for the Sabres in 87-88. Joined the Islanders in 91-92 early in the season as part of the Pat LaFontaine deal and scored 38 goals and 87 points in 69 games that first season on the island. But 92-93 was by far his best season of his career. 58 goals, 74 assists, 132 points. Add 13 points in 11 playoff games, and if he wasn't cheap-shotted by Dale Hunter, maybe, just maybe, the Islanders win a Stanley Cup in 1993. He stayed on the island through the 94-95 season when he was dealt to Montreal. Later played for St. Louis, Dallas, and Colorado. In his career, 515 goals, 1,327 points in 1,294 games. Add 35 goals and 97 points in 109 playoff games. And what a career Pierre Turgeon had, both for the New York Islanders and overall, and he's in the Hall for a reason. One of his better games as an Islander, how about November 30th, 1991, Islanders hosting the Capitals at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Mike Liut, the starter for Washington, Glenn Healy in between the pipes for the Islanders, Pierre Turgeon on the power play with Kevin Hatcher in the box, sets up Derek King. Islanders go up 1-0. Late in the first, Turgeon scores from Steve Thomas and Wayne McBean. 2-0 Islanders. And Turgeon not even close to done. First minute of the second period, again on the power play with Dale Hunter in the box for cross-checking. Steve Thomas sets up Pierre Turgeon. Isles up 3-0. Later in the period, Turgeon completes the hat trick. His 9th of the year, 3rd of the game, Steve Thomas and David Volek with the assists at 11:52. Islanders crush the Capitals 8-1. They chase Mike Liut. Don Beaupre finishes up. But for Pierre Turgeon, there's the hat trick. He's got the assist. He's a +2. He scored on 3 of his 4 shots. He scored the game winner. And the Islanders romp over the Capitals. 26 saves for Glenn Healy. 4 assists for Steve Thomas in this game. And 3-point games for both Ray Ferraro, Patrick Flatley, and Benoit Hogue as well. So great game for the New York Islanders. Great game for Pierre Turgeon. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we are back on Monday. Yeah, it's Labor Day, but we will still have a show. So we'll be back on Monday with the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. If you haven't had a chance to check out our interview with Bill Mickelson, which was on Wednesday, an original Islander, check that out. Some great memories that he shared. And training camp so close, and I can't believe the summer is almost over. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.